Hello everyone. I hope this is an easier way to make a video than my photo booth thing on my Mac because I guess my Mac is just not liking today. But I wanted to record a video, talk a little bit about what's going on in my life because sometimes it's easier to say it than type it because I realize on Tumblr I've been typing things for months now and it's just not the same unless you actually hear it. But since it's been a long time since I've done this, I can tell you some exciting things that have happened to me, such as my glasses. I actually got glasses a few weeks ago, but it took them forever to actually make them, so I just got them like a week and a half ago, whereas I actually got prescribed for them a long time ago. And my cartilage pierced, and that hurts. I was expecting it 100%, but maybe not as much as I thought. Anyway, those have been the two big things besides being a little bit more upbeat and happier in my life, which has been a really good positive thing. But I feel like every week I learn something new about the human race or myself, which I know a lot of people will say, and they'll say, I'm just trying to find myself, I'm just trying to understand who I am, but I actually believe this to be true because I really feel like as we grow, we learn a lot about ourselves. And actually today I had a substitute in one of my classes who said he was maybe 25 or so and just out of graduate school, and he was saying, I would never date someone who was nothing short of a junior in college because they just haven't found themselves yet. And that really stuck with me. Besides the other things that have really stuck with me throughout the past few weeks. But I'm really starting to learn, as some of you know, I used to live in Japan, and when I lived in Japan, I wished everything away. And I don't know why, actually, because I think I was happy somewhere inside my mind. I think I was legitimately happy, but I never told myself that because I always thought that there was something better on the other side. The grass was always greener. But I learned I can't live that way. Because if I'm not embracing this moment right now, then every time something great happens to me, I'm just going to be waiting for that next moment instead of enjoying the little successes, big successes that I have in the interim. So that was one thing I've been discovering a little bit this week. And I had great friends in Tokyo, and I know I bring this up a lot, and a lot of my friends know I talk about, making the transition from living there to moving here. But I feel I've reconnected with some of my old friends, whether that be from the ones from Tokyo or the ones from Connecticut, where I had been before Tokyo. And I used to never believe it was true that people moved on. I didn't really want to believe that people could leave a friendship behind or forget that you were friends with them. But people do that. And I guess that's one thing I'll never understand about the human brain, and I suppose I'm guilty of it. I'm sure there are people I've encountered throughout my years who I just was great friends with at the time but never kept up with, and they might look at me and think the same thing. They might say, how could she just forget a friendship that was so great? And it hurts a little bit because, I have one of my dear friends, I still consider her a dear friend, Sophie. And we don't talk as much anymore. But when the tsunami happened about a month ago and they were in Japan, I did everything to make sure that I could help them and make sure they were okay. And it was through disaster that we reconnected. And I find that saddening, that we can't find other ways to reconnect except when something horrific has happened. And I don't fault her for being busy or for moving on. I do believe it's just a part of nature and just the way that we're built. And that might just be the way we're built. I don't know. But, then I look at the other parts of my life, like with my sister, and I love my sister dearly. I know she knows that, but I miss the days where I could come home and she would be in her room, or she would drive me home from school, and I could just sit in a chair in her room and just tell her everything I hate about the world. But those days are gone, and every time I see her and visit her in college, I realize, I might not get those days back, but I really should be happy that she's older and she's more mature and she's, living her own life now. And sometimes with other friends, I have to put that same mindset in. I have to think, well, sometimes feelings just fade, and it's just a way of life. And I think it's hard for people to understand that whether it's in a friendship or relationships, everything must come to an end at some point. And I know it sounds harsh and brutal, but it's true. We sometimes take for granted the friendships that we have, and then when they're gone, we almost do a double take and wonder where it all went. And that's kind of one thing that I'm trying to help myself understand better is, if I meet a good friend along the way or finally reconnect with a friend, can I really keep that friend for a while? Or are they worth keeping? Are they, I don't like being the person that's ditched all the time. I don't like being the one who's left in the dust. But to be honest, since a lot of my people and friends know this, they would know that I'm not the most popular person in the world. I don't have a million friends. I don't even sit in the cafeteria anymore during lunch. In fact, I'm usually either doing something newspaper related or reading my book, because I don't know what's happened to me, but I feel like I'm longing for a new beginning. I feel like I'm ready to sort of move on to college where I can have my own freedom and I'm not worried about, I want to do this on Friday night, but my parents just think I have too much homework and can't handle it. I'm ready to meet like-minded people, and that comes from choosing a college where I feel like I'm going to have the best fit. And I'm ready to sort of take on endeavors by myself without my parents looking at me and questioning me, or even peers around me looking at me and wondering why I want to do this and that, because I'm just an ambitious person, and I feel like sometimes I'm limited to that because, I'm not 18. I can't, 18, supposedly 18 and 21, kind of like the big numbers where you can sort of feel a little bit more freedom, but I'm not there yet, but I want to be there. But then again, I always hear, don't wish it away. But as I said, that's another sort of realization I come to is, what does it mean to live in the now? What does that mean? Is there something else worth living for? Is it just that we're all going to come home from school and study and go on Facebook, listen to music, and go to sleep, wake up, and repeat the same pattern for the rest of our lives? Is there some other reason why I should be? I don't know. And I have so many questions that go unanswered every day. But I feel like this week I'm becoming a little bit more aware that people are going to move on. People can't, it's just not humanly possible to be friends with every single person you've come along with in your entire life, no matter how much you want it. I have my dear friend Pratibha, and I understand that she's in a different place in her life, and she's getting older and more mature, and I can tell just by talking with her on the phone that she just sounds more mature. It's not in a bad way, but it's different because I was so used to just going over to her house or her coming over to my house and just, it's those moments of not feeling like anything else in the world was going on, but just being able to not worry about anything, but just talk with someone who was so like-minded. And when people move like she did, you know, you don't want to be stuck in the past, which is why, she's made friends, she's continued with friendships here, and I can't fault her for wanting to grow up because I want to grow up too. I think everyone does. I think people just handle it a little bit more differently than the rest. And for me, I don't like the idea of a goodbye. I don't like the idea of not thinking I can never talk to someone again. And there have been moments with plenty of my friends where I felt like, am I ever going to talk to them again? And no matter how infrequently I talk to Bertiva, I still know that there's a part of her that wants to be friends with me. And it's not that we're not friends, because we are friends, but there's another part of me that has to come to the understanding that people will mature and will grow up. And going back to my sister, that's one of the hardest things, is, feeling like those moments where, when we were in Connecticut, where we could just roll in the mud and go in our scary place and pretend like there were animals all around us and feed the fake deer and not worry about anything. Those days come and go, and we have to grow up at some point. And maybe I'm just at that point in my life where I feel like I'm making a little bit more of a transition from being a little, immature, to becoming a little bit more mature and taking on different understandings in my mind. But and honestly, it's hard to grow up. There are a lot of people I see at my school who it seems like they just go about their days as if they don't have a care in the world. Maybe their parents aren't there for them and they have all the freedom in the world. Or maybe their parents are there for them, but their parents are so trusting of them that they can gallivant around wherever they want to and do as they may, but never take on responsibility. And I never see those hardships in those kinds of kids. But then I look at me and I can reflect on some of the really low points in my life, some of which I cannot say over the internet. But, sometimes I don't see the struggle in other people's faces, and I wonder is it just me that's growing up this way, or do other people feel it and not show it? And then I think at the same time, I think people do feel it, but they choose not to show it because they don't want to be that person that everyone looks at and says, gosh, they're so sad, they can't find the joy in life. And maybe they look at people like me who use blogging to get out their feelings, and they look down on me because I feel like I can't go to people in real life. And I don't know, growing up is hard. And whenever I come to these sort of epiphanies, it sort of gives me an inkling of hope inside my mind, because there are days where I just, I'll stare out the window, I'll sit out on the porch, and I'll just wonder, do the hard times end? Is there going to be some upward slope instead of just these downward spirals? But I think there's hope somewhere. And I think it depends on how you look at it. But it's out there. And that's my reflection for the week. I hope that wasn't too deep for some of you. No pun intended. But maybe next time I can articulate my thoughts a little bit more clearly. But it feels better to say it instead of type it all the time. Anyway, more to come in the next coming days.